I think we're ready. Good afternoon and welcome to our Tech Up Talks. I'm Cecilia Hatton from Tech Up for Women. It is with pleasure that I'm here to introduce our moderator for today, Emily Grigely. And we have Sandra Lopez from Intel. So before I turn it over to Emily, I'm going to give a little background on Emily. And at the end, if anybody has any questions, please put them in the chat box and we will answer them at the end. So let me give you a little background about Emily before I turn it over. Emily Grigely has been a sport technology enthusiast over the past 5 years. She has led all aspects of corporate communication, including marketing, public and media relations, digital communications, and field operations. She has been involved working with companies such as Fox Sports and Overwatch League, esports. Emily has been a driving force behind increasing awareness of the newest brands and innovation, especially in the esports industry. She has also been a producer for Summerjack's production and an independent contractor as a public speaker on air talent for local Los Angeles communities. So thank you, ladies. Welcome, and I will turn it over to Emily.
Well, thank you so much, Cecilia. That was a very nice intro. I appreciate that. And today we are just so excited to be at the Tech Up Talk with Sandra Lopez. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, good afternoon. Good morning, depending on where you are.
Exactly, right? Well, I want to get just right into it because I have a feeling, a lot of great things to talk about. You are currently the Vice President leading Intel's effort for the digitization and personalization of sports around the world. You have quite a resume, but I want to leave that up to you to tell us a little bit about your unique path. Can you tell us where you started and the journey that led you to your current role at Intel?
Yeah, so thank you, Emily, and I'm looking forward to having a conversation with you. And I think your key word was unique. Oftentimes, I think as little kids, we're told by society, like, this is the type of job you should be doing. I remember my parents saying, you should either be a doctor or a lawyer. And those were like these fixed paths. And I really wanted to be a fashion designer. And the reason why is I was curious about how what you decided to wear made you feel. And so I decided to pursue a career of business and fashion. And shortly after graduating, I got a master's in fashion. I took a year doing fashion merchandising, which is very similar to brand management in traditional consumer packaged goods company. And a year into my job, my company had the fast track. So oftentimes, if you're new to a company, you are being trained and groomed for leadership positions. And the COO of that company during lunch pointed to another colleague of mine, similar pedigree, except arguably he had he was much better at statistics than I was. And the COO said to me, hey, do you know that your friend Aaron is going to be more successful than you? And I kind of scratched my head. I'm like, well, is it because of stats and should I go get my MBA degree? And he whispered in my ear, he's like, no, there's a glass ceiling that exists. And I went home that day and I really thought about it. This was before me being an activist in terms of female advancement. And I just said to myself, why would I spend an extra second in a company that already has told me that I would not succeed? And I spent a couple of months really thinking about my next move, and I happened to be in Silicon Valley. And really going back to like fashion, what I was curious is about how industries affect society. And I'm like, I'm in the tech industry. I took software engineering courses and I decided to pivot into the tech industry. And ever since then, I've been in technology. And so I would say, you're going back to your earlier point, there's often a statement that you will have 3 different careers in your life, and they could drastically change from one to the other. And so I would say I started in fashion, ended up in tech, started my pedigree in marketing, and then went into business. And now I'm on the business side of a business unit group.
That's amazing. Now, I know how passionate you are about women in sports advancing. Can you provide us and our viewers with some suggestions as to how women can enter this industry and not hit what you just said, that glass ceiling?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm generally interested in women advancing in any type of business. And a lot of it is because we represent 50% of the population, in some cases 51%. And our voices need to be heard in whether you're the products or services that you develop. And every single day, I always tell my daughter this, like there's a micro inequity that exists. It could be something so small, yet it hurts our overall advancement of moving ahead in our corporate career. And while I thought tech industry was very difficult, the sports industry was much more challenging. It's the boys club. I mean, they've been working together for 20 plus years. I remember attending my first sports conference, and it was a sea of men all looking the same and all in blue navy suits. And it was hard. It was hard to break in. And so what I would say in terms of how I was able to break in is I was able to find male allies in the sports industry. Evan Levine, Sean Sansevieri, I can list them all, that helped me understand. I was always fanatic about sports, and I played sports, but more so like who's who in sports. What did I need to know to be successful? And they were my mentors. They guided me, and when I've had challenges, open to having conversations. And so for anybody that's trying to enter the world of sports, and for anybody that is struggling, there are nonprofits. There's Women in Sports and Technology, right? There's WISE. And I would say actively participate in those conferences, actively seek out individuals that are in the community that want to help out. And oftentimes we say, yes, how can we help you and guide you?
Okay, that's awesome. Like you spoke a little bit. I know for the viewers that are just tuning in, Sandra and I had a nice little conversation last week, and you spoke a little bit about, just to kind of get everybody up to speed, about understanding the value of an environment that fosters both the psychological safety and the diversity of perspectives. And you at Intel have created, amongst with another a team of people, Women in Sports program. Can you talk a little bit about that fostering of that program and what it means to you?
Yeah, it started with really reflecting on myself, because I'm an active member of the Latino community within Intel and the women leadership community. And if I were saying to myself, the sports industry is the hardest industry to break into, I wasn't doing anything to help my female colleagues within my immediate group. And so I said to myself, like, I have to do something. So we kicked off Women in Sports. It was this simple vision of just advancing and providing opportunities for our female leaders within our team. And we started in Santa Clara. Now it's 5 chapters with over 60 members. We participated in 25 different events. And it provides different things, either, having the one-to-one. I'm in the middle of vacation, so I have my daughter joining. Apologize.
Hi.
Hello. Real time, COVID, working at home, and dual parenting. But it was about having those open conversations of the struggles that exist and how can one overcome them. I go back to when I started my career, I didn't have mentors. And if I would have had mentors, would I have taken the action differently of that COO that told me that there was a glass ceiling? I don't know. Maybe I would have, maybe I would not have. And so having the open door and having any type of conversation, bringing senior leaders to our community that can speak about their challenges. And when you hear other people's challenges, you're like, wow, I'm not alone. And so our program is really about providing access, opportunity, and then being there in any shape or form. And it's not just females. We actually have our male allies. Some of them are co-chairs, which I'm super excited about, that hear their stories. And then they realize like, well, wow, what can I do differently? How can I help should this situation arise?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, just through my career of the past 15 years, it's been one that has been difficult to navigate in the sense of finding a male ally. Like I've been in the sport, I've been in the sports world my entire life, and while yes, I do have some men who are of the mentor type, they're not 100% actually guiding the way, or they never really guided the way for me personally. That's my story, and it doesn't really matter here, but I know for a lot of viewers probably watching and then also listening for this, like what is the best way to find a male ally, or how can you ask for guidance from your perspective?
I mean, I think, Emily, to your point in terms of guidance is all very different. Everybody has a unique situation. So I always say like mentors are advisors and sponsors are advocates. So I think that's an important distinction. As mentors, there's several different types of mentors. It's how do you ask for that promotion? That's one type of mentorship. How do you deal with trying to participate in driving business forward, yet all the men are on the golf course getting business done and you're not invited even if you have a good game? Those are things that I think you can actually talk to male allies. And then there's scenarios of, I remember coming back after having my child and the struggles of being a working parent. Men go through it too, but I think sometimes like there is an extra effort that females need to play into it because it's just organic. Like your child needs a lot from a nurturing mother. It's just our reality. It's genetics. It's how we're born. And then at the same time at work, people are assuming what I was able to do and not do without even having the conversation, right? So, well, she just had a baby. She's not going to be fully committed. So she's not going to travel. Like, did anybody have that conversation with me? And so a mentor around working parenting and how do you address some of the hidden challenges that you never thought would exist because there's no playbook, and having mentors around that. And I always tell individuals, like, seek mentors for different things in your life. And in the same time, while you have mentors, you're expanding your network that's going to help you out. But to your point, Emily, like there isn't the perfect mentor. I think there's many different mentors for many different opportunities that you have in your career. And I remember one woman asked me the question, is like, well, how do you ask? And I'm like, well, within your own group, maybe there's a person that's willing to help you. And the worst thing they're going to say is no.
Right.
You can go on LinkedIn, and some of us actually respond to LinkedIn messages and requests. I know I do. And it's just because if I help out the next generation will help out my daughter. And I do that because I care. I want to see not 50% of female as CEOs. I'm like, why is it 50%? Why can't it be 80%? Why can't we have 100%, C-level female leadership? So it's not an easy question to answer because I do believe everybody we all have our own individual lives. We all have our own individual challenges, and it's just finding the right person to help guide you and provide that advice.
Would you say, in regard to finding a potential mentor, that you think that would be a right fit for you, is whether it be on LinkedIn or it's in your circle of work and so forth, and say, just straight up ask that person, female or male, hey, listen, I really need a mentor. Would you be mine? Or should you provide some sort of substance of, I need X, Y, and Z, so can you help me be a mentor in this way? Or
I think it just it depends on the person. I always tell, like, you're always marketing yourself, so you got to know your audience. Mm-hmm. So some individuals will gladly take a meeting, and the mentor would say, that person came, was not prepared, wasn't really clear on the objective. What does that person want? And at that point in time, that the mentee already made an impression on the mentor. Mm-hmm. So, and then other people are much more like, well, how can I help you? What do you want to get done? And some meetings that I have is I'm asking a lot of questions to really peel the onion and understand how I can help that person. And that we're all different human beings and we all expect different things from a mentor-mentee relationship. So I would challenge anybody that's looking for a mentor is know who you're asking, know their style, their personality, and know how best to approach it. And sometimes you can ask the person like, hey, how would you think, Joe would like me to approach a mentor-mentee relationship? So it's different for each individual, and it's also different in terms of who you are as a person.
Right, exactly. So have you, could you tell us a little bit of some of Intel's company initiatives, like what you just said with your daughter coming in, we all have to adjust accordingly because we are working from home. We're doing these Zoom calls. It's definitely a new way of life. There's positives and then there are some setbacks to that. But can you tell us a little bit of how Intel's companies, like they have some initiatives during the the COVID-19 virus?
Yeah, so I think what's interesting is that an unsung hero during COVID is, I believe, is technology. Imagine without being able to do video conferencing, imagining, while some of us are proponent or not in terms of virtual school, and it also amplifies the digital divide. But Intel understanding that we're very committed to helping create a better world as we've invested $10 million to $50 million in terms of pandemic and understanding from a technology perspective how to accelerate creating solutions for COVID, also ensuring that the local communities have technology to support it, as well as providing PPE equipment. So one of the things that I always tell people, like people are like, why are you at Intel? And you've been there for over 15 years. I'm like, it's such a magical company. And when Intel's challenged to rise to the occasion and give back to the community, Intel has always given back to the community. So the investment it's made for COVID across equipment, technology, and local community is something that we think is important in terms of bringing back some sense of normalcy. I mean, it's really, really hard. And I know it's like we'll have a new normal, but helping people out in the time of needs is something that's really important. And I'm really honored to say that I'm an Intel employee because of that.
Yeah, that's so nice. Now, previously we did discuss, and I mean, for you as part of you contribute a ton to the community, and the company also focuses on building the next generation of just great people, but also great female leaders.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned a little bit about how there's adapting to this new world of COVID-19. Where or what type of struggles have you seen in the industry right now, and how could you suggest or provide insight on overcoming those struggles?
Emily, I think we all have our own struggles. And if the first thing is to acknowledge that we are all carrying somewhat of a struggle. And you have COVID coupled with Black Lives Matter, what just happened a couple of days ago with Jacob Blake, and the recession, all of that compounded. I think as leaders, we need to acknowledge each one of our employees and understand that they may be carrying a burden that we have no idea what that burden is, and allowing people to give them space. I mean, everybody's different. I know for me, I'll be honest, there are times where I have really bad days and I'm not sure if I can bring my full self to work. And so I talk a lot about mental health and what do I need to give myself some breathing room and figure out new types of routines to get me through the week, the month. I mean, started in March, you kind of figured it out. Then all of a sudden it's June and it continues on. And for some of us that are extroverts, we like to be outside and, we travel a lot. It's trying to find a new rhythm and recognizing that it's not always easy. And so I think what's really important as leaders is check in on with your team. Some of them will open up. Some of them you'll hear stories that you would have never heard should it not be about COVID or like Black Lives Matter, and your heart breaks. And all you can do is the power of empathy. I do think that the next generation leaders is not just about IQ, it's about EQ. And providing them support any way you can. And now you have fires, right? So like checking in with your team, like, do you have a home? How can I help you? Okay, this person's being evacuated. How can, like, this can Intel, because Intel's always great. Like, can we help them find corporate housing? And so it's, as leaders, we have to be super in tune with EQ and what's happening to our world.
So speaking of what's happening to our world and in our world, and be it what you just mentioned, but also some advancements. So where are our live sports going into 2021?
Yeah, I think COVID for us, albeit in some of the live sports was on pause, it has been an accelerator to our business, right? So a lot of the leagues are realizing that the digitization of sports has happened. We do a lot of research, understanding the next generation of fans. And what we've seen is that like over 73% of fans want content from any place, anywhere, at any time. And in some cases, they just want to be alerted, right? With this challenge of so many pressures in our lives, right? Many of us are working, we're working parents, we have COVID. We don't have the luxury to sit at home and watch an entire game. And so just alert me with regards to, you know, the NBA or playoffs. And I'm actually here with my daughter and trying to enjoy vacation, but, you know, we're not going to be sitting there watching the NBA, but give me the alerts of what's happening. The other thing that we've been seeing is that, similar to, you come from the world of esports, right? So the next generation has been very engaged with playing video games and the interactivity, and they want control. And so that experience is no different from live sports. And so what we've seen is that fans, about 63%, want to be able to have interactivity, want to view games from different perspectives. And so Intel as a company, because we look ahead and we look into the future, we are providing what I would call the next generation media format, in which we're going to provide access to fans, the ability to break down a play from any perspective. Pick or choose your favorite player. I mean, we're all different. We're all individuals. We just don't want to see it from the quarterback play. And so that to us is very exciting. And when we look at COVID and we're looking at what's happening with fans and sports, for us, it's accelerating our need to develop and execute quicker to help our partners, whether it's the NFL, NBA, global football, meet the demands of the next generation fan.
What would you say is the most innovative sports tech that you've seen over the past year?
You know, I would say sports tech is touching all aspects, whether it's the arena, whether it's, you know, everybody's talking about OTT streaming, volumetric video, what Intel's committed to. I don't think it's any one technology. I think technology is finally going to transform sports. The sports, I always tell people, like, it's the last industry that has changed due to technology, right? It hasn't really changed for the past 80 years. And you have the changing demands of the fans. And now you have COVID as an amplifier. The sports leagues and teams are really thinking about what is a new normal for sports. And so arguably, I would say all touch points, there will be new technology involved. And we at Intel Sports are really excited about really driving and meeting the needs of the fan and allowing the fan to just, you know, when we were talking to a fan and just what he said to me was like, wow, I can now break down the play. I can choose my own perspective. I'm not fixed by these 4 cameras that are on the field or in the arena. And I think that in itself is transformative. So it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. It's going to transform. And what I would say is the challenge to any industry and in sports is don't just pick tech for tech's sake, right? The sports industry is very sponsor based. And so if this technology company wants to sponsor us, we will integrate it. And I think what's really important is understanding, it goes back to the basic fundamentals in building a business. Like, what problem are you solving? What value is being placed on it in terms of the customer or the fan that you're serving? Mm-hmm. And making sure that it's seamless. Like technology should not be a disruptor. It should not disrupt the viewing experience or the engagement experience. It should be fluid. And so we always strive ourselves to be like, make technology invisible. And I think that Intel has done that extremely well. We're always the technology behind fueling all of these experiences. And so I would argue I'm excited to see the new world of sports with technology helping change the experiences because the consumers have changed.
Oh, without question. I mean, being that I've been in the sports industry for about 15 years, I've been going to a lot of conventions and groupings over the last, 12 years, I would say. And of that 12 years, 8 of them, I thought it was crazy 8 years ago when they were saying digitization and technology is going to be the driving force of sports. And I'm like, how? You know? And then this year, I feel like it's been the catapult or the catalyst that has moved it forward. For sure.
Sometimes, I would say sometimes what happens in business, and not just sports, and any type of industry, is afraid of change.
Yeah.
Afraid of the unknown.
Yeah.
And I think this is where you have to go find partners that see value and see a new business to help you drive that change. And so like I pride ourselves in, like, you bring the best of the sports industry who really understands a fan. They engage with them every single day. And then you bring the prowess of technology and engineers together to solve a problem. And that's when magic happens. And I do think, to your point, I actually arguably, when I started the sports industry 4 years ago, I'm absolutely starting to see a change. I started to see in some of the arena experiences, the experimentation of technology. And what I would always do is just challenge people to think about, what problem are you solving? And, innovate and iterate. The other thing too, that the sports industry, like, they want it perfect. I'm like, technology is never perfect. Think about the iterations. Think about when the smartphone started, and how it started with the mobile devices, and the app ecosystem wasn't all established. So tech is about innovate, iterate, innovate, iterate. Learn from how your fans are engaging with the experiences, listen to the feedback, and iterate.
Do you see women's roles growing in tech sports currently right now?
Absolutely. I mean, you're seeing coaches, assistant coaches, you're seeing more people on the business side. We obviously, there's always more opportunity, right? And so for us, Intel Sports, we partnered with Hashtag to challenge the industry at large, to think about diversity and inclusion. And oftentimes, and I'm sure, Emily, you hear this all the time, like, well, we can't find talent.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, talent's everywhere. You just have to look a little bit harder. You can't just look at your circle of your own network, right? You have to work harder. And so to address that problem, Hashtag and Intel have come together, working with some amazing companies in the world of sports, and to help address pipeline, to help ensure that there was a stat, Emily, like with regards to female journalists in sports. You guys get less time, less coverage than men. Well, why is that? It doesn't have to be that way. Many of us have played sports when we were in, college, right?
Grade school, whatever. Right.
I'm one of the biggest NFL fans, right? So,
you and me both.
Yeah, I'm super excited for the season to kick off. And I grew up watching global football soccer with my father, and it's a memory. And we have events around these games and these tournaments. And so I would argue that without having female voices in leadership position, you're missing an opportunity. Men don't understand what we go through day to day because they're not walking our shoes. And oftentimes, so this is what I get. I get this comment, well, I have a wife and I have a daughter.
Okay.
Does that help you understand the day to day, what we're going through in terms of management positions? Maybe not. And so that's that's not enough. And we have to work harder across all industries to make sure that we are represented. And, diversity of thought, I see that in like our team is very diverse, and healthy tension, healthy conversations that lead to better results.
Right.
So I'm a big proponent of that.
Sandra, how can we use technology to advance women in our industry, in this industry?
I mean, I think we're already using it, right? So I would say this conference, Tech Up for Women, is using technology as an underpinning and bringing females together. And that cannot be overlooked in terms of the power that will happen, right? In some cases, there are scenarios that somebody will reach out to me and I'll connect them with somebody else, and eventually they get a job. Yeah. Technology through LinkedIn, you have nonprofit, WIST and WISE, that they're highlighting female heroes that are just either in college or starting their career through social media, right? Bringing awareness to an individual that was interested. There was a young woman that was interested in sports and technology, came through my Instagram, and I had somebody on my team, Jessica David, to reach out to her and say, maybe you can help her. Maybe you can provide her some feedback or access to a particular network. Technology is everywhere, and I think technology is an enabler to help females advance. Yeah. And I would say where sometimes we are challenged is that there are many females that don't want to ask for help. Yeah. Because it seems like help is a weak, and I think help is actually a strength. Yeah. And the power of just asking for help and the result that comes out of it will help propel that person forward.
You kind of hit the nail on the head there, because as a new mother, my daughter's a year old, you are just so into the, like, you have a routine, and a routine with work, a routine as raising your family, a routine in the household, picking up and everything. And while you say that, yes, asking for help can be a weakness, at the same time, you're kind of like tunnel vision in the sense of just, well, let me just do it myself so that it gets done quicker, essentially. How can you open your mind a little bit, or can you suggest ways in which to open your mind a little bit of just surrendering, I guess?
I know, just sometimes control is not necessarily a good thing. And when you surrender, to your point, like when you surrender, you see things clearer. So you need to realize that part of your growth, there's always this transition, and many people struggle with it. When you're an individual contributor and you become a manager, or you become a leader, letting go of that control, it's interesting. A lot of people struggle with it. And as I've managed through a bunch of individuals going through that transition, I find females that struggle with it more. And maybe because we multitask well. I don't know what the underlying rationale is but I do think that it's okay to let go. It's okay to delegate. It enables you to do more, and it also enables you to focus on yourself and see clarity. When you're so busy doing a bunch of different things, you kind of, to your point, you have tunnel vision, you lose sight. And then when you're able to delegate and step back, you can see the bigger picture. And I think as leaders, you have the responsibility of seeing that bigger picture than the day-to-day task at hand.
Now, there's a lot of, we mentioned earlier in our conversation about how some people say that you'll go through 3 careers in your lifetime or more. Now, if somebody, be it they're in a completely different workforce and they want to pivot their career into sports technology or into what it is that you do or I do, specifically for you, Sandra, what advice might you give them?
We talked about this. I like to use the analogy of ways, right? So you directionally know where you want to go, but allow yourself to kind of go through these undiscovered neighborhoods, right? And you will discover your own depth. When I started, I went from fashion to tech. In the technology industry, I'm like, I want to be a CMO. And I had blinders on, to your earlier point, like, this is what I need to do. I need to do check. and put all these check boxes. And one of my sponsors said, Sandra, take a step back, and this idea of having a 10-year plan, you may lose sight of opportunities. And I'm like, well, what do you mean by that? Like, directionally know where you want to go, but allow yourself to explore opportunities that maybe you thought you were not capable of. And shortly after that advice, maybe a year and a half later, I ended up in China. That wasn't part of like my, agenda. And I was there for like almost a year, came back. And then I was really intrigued with my new business. And then I ended up in new business. That was not part of my agenda. And I do think, allow yourself some flexibility. I know oftentimes we are told by society, have your 5-year plan. Well, you know what? In my 5-year plan back in 2015, I did not know COVID was going to be part of the agenda. So think about life has these unexpected things that I call them like these breadcrumbs, and follow them. And you may end up in a type of job or career that is unexpected. So I would tell people, allow yourself some flexibility, allow yourself to kind of follow the breadcrumbs and what your gut's telling you, and get lost a little bit in your career to really discover what you're capable of.
So what's some advice that you could, if you were speaking to your younger self, what advice would you give to your younger self?
It changes, I think, depending on like my overall mental state. But I would go back to ask for help.
Yeah.
I would say go ask for help, because I was conditioned to think about help was for the weak. Help related to maybe lack of intelligence. And I completely disagree with that.
Yeah.
Help is understanding maybe areas of opportunities that you need to work on. Help is understanding that you can't do it all. Help gets you ahead. And so that's what I would say in terms of just ask for help.
That's great. That's a great piece of advice. Now, Sandra, I know that we have to start wrapping this up, but I'd love for you to tell us your favorite sports tech product at Intel.
Well, that would be kind of biased. It would be the one that we're working on. No, I would say, TrueView and our ability. This is what I've always enjoyed about working in technology, is understanding, and it kind of takes you back to the world of fashion, understanding where society's going, and understanding the technology that you need to develop, because technology doesn't get developed in 3 months or 6 months. It's a multi-year journey, and being able to give fans the joystick to be their own producers, to be their own creative people. And that, to me, and to appreciate every single player, not just some of the, fixed positions, or the athlete that is more popular at a given time. I do think that we are all individuals, and we all have our favorite sport, our favorite team, our favorite athlete, our favorite position, and the ability just to give the fan the control to experience the game how they want to experience it is going to be revolutionary. And I say that not because I'm in Intel Sports, but it's because I hear the fans in response to the experiences that we're delivering, and they get to look at things underneath the hood, and just the faces is like, oh my God, can I do that? It's like kids in the candy shop.
Yep.
So I look forward to being able to deliver on that. I highlight that the engineers are working some magic. It is not easy. It's petabytes of data that get captured, deconstructed, processed, and delivered to your device in seconds. Is a challenge. And so Intel's to the challenge to deliver those experiences to the next generation of fans.
So I have to ask, because fall is amidst us and football season is just right around the corner. Who is your favorite team?
I know I shouldn't answer that because I love all teams. No, but honestly, I'm a Bay Area native, so the 49ers. I grew up. This is the thing about so special about sports is sports bring back some memories, and I remember watching football with my dad, watching the Niners every Sunday. And so now my daughter is in a household. My former partner, he's a Raiders fan. I'm a Niners fan, so she's a Raider Niner fan, and look forward to a good season, but more importantly, making sure that everybody stays healthy during these times. So super excited for NFL season and ensure that everybody stays healthy.
Absolutely. Well, Sandra, thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts to join us at the Tech Up Talk. And it's been so wonderful just catching up and seeing and listening to all that you have to offer, from the intel and just like your everydays of life with amidst COVID-19.
Yeah, no, thank you, Emily. It's great to be chatting with you, and I look forward to adding you to my network as we help each other out, progress, and move the industry forward, and making sure that we have full representation in sports.
100%.
And thank you, ladies. Thank you both. Emily, thank you again for always your support for Tech Up for Women. And Sandra, as you said, thank you for connecting with me on LinkedIn and starting our dialogue, and for supporting our initiatives. And it is our hope to have you November 17th at our event.
Yeah,
So
no, thank you, Cecilia and John, for everything that you guys are doing. This is very important. Super committed to your cause, and any way that we Intel can help, I'm happy to help. So thank you all.
Thank you, ladies.
Enjoy.
Have a great day. Thank you
Bye-bye.
very much.
Bye.
Wonderful.
Bye.